this situation. You have this on one end, you have this like detached buyer persona who doesn't, who only cares about high level value, right? And then you have the developer that cares about the actual functional value and the things that they're going to get from it. And so my claim is that they don't do it themselves, the CTO. They don't do it themselves. So at the end of the day, this is going to be the dev looking at that website, right? Because even if it's a CTO that goes to the website because heard at the conference, from a friend or something like that, and they go to the website, check out, oh yeah, so that was the website. What's the next step? Are they going to spend, test it out themselves? Like most of the time, no. Like they will, talk to their, maybe they will talk to the director, or talk to a solution architect that they have, or, just the architect that they have, right? Like, or maybe some senior dev to evaluate it, to take a look, right? Or share it with the team and see if people, see this as valuable, right? Like it's not, like they're not going to be evaluating this. And you need to lend the value for the developer because even in that most CTO heavy, I guess, scenario where the CTO actually brings the tool, right? Because they opened your email, cold email, and they decided to take a look. Like the next step is the dev, looking at the website, right? So, my claim is that oftentimes it goes from the other direction, where it starts with the dev. The dev, takes it, like they know they have a problem, they take a look, right? They test it out, they see that it's valuable, they start using it on a team, maybe they use it on a free plan, or maybe they upgrade to the team plan that typically sits under the limits of the credit card, right? So that the team manager, needs to buy into this. How does the team manager gets bought into this? Well, the dev tells them.
Welcome to another episode of the DevTool G Team Group. I'm super excited for today's episode because we have one of the foremost experts in developer marketing realm joining us. Please welcome Kuba Chacon. Kuba currently serves as a Chief Marketing Officer at Neptune AI and the most scalable experiment tracker for teams training foundational models. He has previously been a data scientist and serves as an advisor for DevRel at Snowflake. And if you're a developer marketer, you already probably know him as the founder of Developer Market Peer, where he shares frameworks, insights on marketing to developers. And fun fact, Kuba has been a professional chess player and coach, and hence it is astounding to me how he manages so many roles. Today, we'll be speaking with him about the best practices for creating a DevTool website that drives conversions. Kuba, great to have you on the podcast today.
Yeah, great to be here, and maybe just like to give you a tip of how I managed to do so many things is that I stopped doing them. I guess like that's the thing where I really get passionate about what I'm doing. It's something I learned about me over time that I cannot really divide between work and life, so I might as well embrace it, and that's what I've done for many years now. But like that means that I don't do many things at the same time. It's like the current passion, and it right now and for many years it has been marketing to devs. Yeah,
that's amazing. And in fact, that's what I wanted to get started with, because you have had a unique career path from a data scientist to a CMO at a developer focused company. So can you talk a bit about this transition?
Yeah, I think it's just as many folks, who transition from dev to marketing, it happens by accident, more than anything, or by the need, of the company. And, in our case, what happened was like I was a senior data scientist at the time, working at DeepSense. It's a, great consulting company doing mostly deep learning modeling, but not only, but a lot of machine learning modeling. And then within that company, Neptune was created. That's where it was born as an internal tool. And Piotr, the CTO of that company, decided to spin it off as a startup and asked me if I wanted to, to join and do sort of like a DevRel work. We didn't call it that back then, but it was basically that, blogging, sharing it with the community. We would participate in Kaggle competitions, and basically share open source the solutions, and that was our, spiel, so to speak. I didn't know much about marketing at that point. So I did that. I did the, the DevTool stuff, but then we hired a marketing team, fired a marketing team. We worked with an agency, and that I think, in hindsight weren't ready, perhaps, but then we stopped doing that. And then midway, through a conversation, we were trying to hire a head of marketing. That guy, Mark Zollner, he asked if, hey, Kuba, listen, like, that you're the end user, right? You're you know the product inside out. You don't know marketing, but I do. So maybe I advise you, you learn it, and you take on marketing. And that's basically what I did. I figured this is like an interesting field to test out. And it seemed that, but by that point, hard, like many people tried and they couldn't do it. And it seemed hard. And I'm always up for a challenge. I saw a lot of parallels between the things that I did before, be that chess, for strategy and sort of like, thinking in game theory terms about many things, or just, pure strategy. Then there are parallels from that I took and learnings I took from my studies. I studied theoretical physics and finance and accounting, completely irrelevant potentially, things. But I did, work in statistics and on both of these. But when it comes to, let's say, marketing measurements, and then my master's thesis, which was about basically modeling, figuring out which model of the universe is most likely based on supernova data, gamma burst arrays, so basically, yeah, explosions of supernovas, far, far away. And then, if you combine that to, marketing measurement and attribution, today, and people talking how difficult it is, and it is, of course, but is it, is it harder than figuring out the model of the universe from supernova data? I don't know. Like, we should be able to figure it out. That's sort of my thinking. And, yeah, so like, I took those parallels, started learning on this life organism, which was Neptune. And, yeah, like I picked up every podcast, every book, every blog that I thought was useful. And, over the years, we grew a lot. We built one of the biggest and most known blogs in the space, hitting around 3 million uniques a year, and that's our blog on Neptune AI/blog, and yeah, grew the team and just got really embedded in this, and probably like 2 years or something like that ago started to share some of that stuff, that I some of my thoughts on the blog that you mentioned. Yeah.
No, it's fascinating, and I also believe that all of these things ultimately come together in life. Coming to something sort of more specific, and it's that, I mean, just looking at your role as a CMO at Neptune AI, you spoke about your blog, and yes, content plays a very crucial role in engaging developers, but then you can be a category creator and your content strategies will be different than how your content strategies will be when you're in a more mature or saturated market. Could you speak a bit about that? Because, you have seen that across your career.
Yeah, no, and I think this is super important because sometimes we try to take tactics that we see are working, for different companies and apply them to ours, right? And to when I speak to DevTool founders, like I see it all the time, right? Like you've seen this working for that company. Let's do the same, right? And I think the crucial part there is to understand the awareness of the market and the situation on the market. And the awareness on the market, when the awareness about the problem, and then about the products, but the problem first. So if you're talking, if you're entering, let's say, observability space today, with so many companies doing a great job and big incumbents that you can anchor to, and like Datadogs or New Relics or other folks, Sentry, right? Like, or if you contrast that to entering a completely new category, or like building that completely new category and attacking completely new problem, not an angle on an old problem, but a completely new problem, maybe something around, AI, now, and sort of like ops around AI, the strategy should change, and they should change because the simplest, sort of like way I like to think about it is, as a dev, as your target audience, what do I Google? Would I ever Google your category? Or like, would I ever Google your category, right? And, obviously in observability, many folks, when they choose, they will look for alternatives to something or comparisons or how, migrating from something. And then the observability and, APM would be something, very well known, right? So people would Google it. And then, then you'd have categories that are completely new that maybe AI-driven, I don't know, like error resolution, I don't know, like, but many, things like that were, I mean, there is no category yet, right? It's a new problem. It's you're attacking it, but it's a new one. And then it's important to understand that, because if you are entering that new, you're solving the new problem, more than anything, you should be talking about the problem and marketing the problem. So yeah, like you're marketing the category, so to speak, right? You're marketing the new category and you hope to be number one in that category, or most recognized, most memorable, most, whatever it is, but, become associated with that category, right? Whereas if you're in a mature one, what you want to do is you want to focus on differentiation, because people know what a category is. Like if you're a startup entering observability, I mean, is it going to help you a lot to write another post about like what is observability? Like potentially not, but like, talking about the differentiation and different ways of doing it and problems with it, and then helping people migrate, helping people choose the tool for a particular use case, etc. It makes sense, right? So that's the most important part. That's differentiation of, is there demand, right? And do people know the category or do they not? And if they do, then you can rely on, higher intent channels, Google being one example, or, running Google ads to those higher intent, pages, etc. Relying on intent data from, other tools, or using the signal-based, tools like Rio, right? And you can rely on this kind of stuff, right? Whereas if you're marketing this new category, if you're, entering this completely new category, there's no demand yet, nobody's Googling anything, they don't understand they have a problem even, then you should talk about a problem, and then the channels change. It becomes more, Twitters and socials and sharing, thoughts on Reddits and Hacker News and engaging in those discussions, etc. Now, it is always valuable to do it. It's always valuable to be in the community, but it is going to be especially valuable and important at the beginning when the category is not there. Because when the category is there, you can create those anchors, etc. But when it's not, you have to create it. You have to create the awareness for the problem, way more than for your solution of that problem.
Oh, I agree, and that's very insightful. Do you see this also changing based on the persona, if you are creating content for developers versus you are not? And if you're creating content for developers, because I've seen you writing a lot about it, right? What are the things that somebody should keep in mind?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great point, and I think generally it all comes down to, are you actually creating something valuable, right? Can you actually teach me something? Can I actually learn something from your content? And a lot of the time, a non-developer is writing a content for the developer. It's going to be hard to create that value, right? It's just harder, right? Because it's harder to resonate, harder to understand the pain at a deep level, etc. Doesn't mean that it never happens, because it definitely can, especially when you're very embedded in the space, maybe, and you have, you can combine the experiences that developers have in the space right now. You could run, reports and surveys, and talk to different folks, and you're basically a reporter within that space. Then it can definitely work. And there are cool examples of some companies. I forget the name, but I listened to a podcast. I'll try to send a link to it, where basically this company, they figured they are an equivalent of Bloomberg in security, and so they created an equivalent of Bloomberg News in security, hiring reporters to basically write the things that they would learn from informants within that space, and have that sort of network of folks who know what's happening in security, and they create this like Bloomberg News for security. And so, like, you can definitely do it without being a developer. But when you're educating, think about it this way: like, can a writer who's writing about productivity tools, marketing tools, sales tools, best diets, best car to pick in 2024, write an article about platform architecture for doing, DevOps in 2024, that a senior architect is going to learn something from, right? And the answer is very unlikely, unless you do a ton of research, but extract that research from subject matter experts, etc. But it's hard, right? So I think it's like, for as long as you can, do that content and share that knowledge, the ROI of it could be huge. Like there are examples of Cockroach and other folks doing it at the beginning. Cockroach Labs is a huge company now, but at the beginning what they did is they actually did a lot of marketing through sharing how they do things on Hacker News, right? Like basically how they migrated from this, how they set up this problem, how they figured out this particular, super technical thing. And those were founders or, almost founder level engineers, that shared it. Tailscale, that is very known for doing that, does the same thing, sort of like folks who write for Tailscale, they are engineers building it. And it feels, it tells, like you read out those articles and you know that this is something that will be interesting to other devs because, those folks, they know what they're talking about. This is dev writing it, that this is better because you may need help from a content writer, but this is a dev writing it. Fly.io is another fantastic example. But so I think if you have that lens of, is what I'm creating valuable, you'll do fine. Like really have that lens. Like, would you send it to your CTO? Would your CTO send it to their friend? Would your, the dev you respect, would they like it? Would they share it with their friends? If the answer is resoundingly no, then rethink it. Like that's how I'm saying.
Oh, I completely get it. And moving on from the content strategy, another great asset for, say, a CMO of a DevTool company is the developer tool website or their website, right? So I to go on to what are the essential elements that you think contribute to building a right or a powerful DevTool website?
Yeah, it's a very good point. And I think like website is more important than some folks think because basically your homepage, because we're talking about that homepage. Homepage is going to be the most visited one. Website obviously has other pages, but the most important to me is like it's basically homepage, pricing, and docs. Those would be the most important one, most important pages, right? And docs typically they don't even need to live on that same page, but homepage is where people land a lot of the times, especially when you're early. They may be landing on your GitHub project, but if you're especially not open source, they will be landing on your homepage. And so homepage should be the representation of your positioning, and it should be speaking to the user, and that's important. And I think many people get this one wrong. So especially at the end of the day, plan on selling to enterprises, or even if you're selling to them right now, you need to convince the developer that there is value in this, like that the product does something that is valuable to them, that it solves the problem. At that point, you don't need to convince the CTO or the CFO that there is ROI in this, or that this is going to bring you, I don't know, your revenue will grow faster or whatever that is, because you're convincing first the developer that there is value in the product, that you solve functional value, and focus on that. So once you have that lens that you are speaking to the developer, a lot of things get easier, because a lot of the times they see the website that conflate the tool, like it speaks to both, and it's very conflated all the way from the top, etc. And I'm not saying over time it doesn't change, or if your motion is completely outbound to the CTO, sure, but like be honest with yourself, who's actually visiting this site. And if it's devs who maybe, saw your article on Hacker News, got interested, or saw your ads, or saw somebody, posting on Twitter, and they go to the website, this is a dev, so explain it to them. And now going to those principles, always, and it's something that's hard for me, because I really love websites and and homepages, especially. Devs will go to the docs. A lot of the devs would go to the docs, so you assume that it's going to happen. But it's not great, because like there are things that you can explain on the website that you cannot really do on the docs, right? Like there are things around, a bit more, visual and interactive, speaking in social proof, right? Like sharing all of that stuff, you're not going to show it there, and then sort of like flow of information, making it attractive and interesting, and going a bit more values and benefits and features, but explain in a way that it's not like extremely technical, but it's still technical, but it speaks to both sides. That's easier to do on the homepage. But devs would go to the docs. So make it prevalent, make it visible, make it there, put it there. Like I do like people putting them in the header, CTA, having them visible in the navbar, super important to me. Always have the docs out there. Then you want to explain what you do. So maybe that actually goes before that. What do you do and how are you different? And the reason I'm saying is because people miss that point where, if I typically know other tools, because devs really like to explore. They explore the space, they look at all those different tools, maybe use some of those tools, etc. So like, if you talk to me as if those other tools didn't exist or I've never heard about them, then you're missing the point, right? Because most of the time, I do know those other tools, or at least some of them, right? I do understand sort of what they do, right? So if you tell me that you're solving your basically API for notification, or like whatever, like is the problem you're solving, or, taking that observability again, like we solve observability, right? Like, yes, you say it so that I know this is the category. You can do it in many different ways, but then explain what's your angle, right? Because without the angle, I mean, like what's the reason for me to take a look, right? And there are angles, maybe you're great for a particular architectural applications, particular languages, particular, scale or geography, or, whatever it is. Like, it could be many things, right? But like, spell it out, like make sure that you land that differentiation, because you can only afford to speak as if no other companies exist if that's almost the case, right? Like if it's the early market, the one we talked about at the beginning, right? Like if you're marketing the problem, then by all means, speak about the problem. I'm solving this problem, and that's it, and I don't think you need to talk about differentiation, because you're differentiating versus the cobbled together solution, right? But it typically speaks, pretty easy. But like, make sure to explain what do you do, and how are you different? At least hint at it, like, because otherwise, you're going to lose me, right? You're going to lose me because I know those other tools and I know they sort of work. So unless I'm really hitting the problem, then, I don't want to go there, right? So that's the second one. The third one is you want to lean on social proof, a social proof from other devs. And, one thing is like, yeah, social proof as logos, having logos in the header. I think that is important. But funny enough, I think it's important because not having them suggests that people don't use it in production. It's not that having them makes me feel extremely, safe and sold. It's just not having those logos makes me feel unsafe, that people are not using this. But then you have the part that I really like, and I think is really important, is having some quotes, having those quotes, social quotes, or, just the testimonials coming from devs explaining this, that we used it in this way, explaining it in technical terms. So I think that part is important. I recently listened to an episode with Adam Franco. I know you had him on the show as well, where he said that one of the core principles is that the only proof that matters is social proof, or the only proof that matters to devs is social proof. And I'm so with him on that. Like, I think this is, like you really can't understate it, so if you can grow that, build that, have it, out there, use it on many different pages, use it, because devs will trust other devs way more than they can ever trust you, right? So you want that. And the next principle that I want to touch on is letting people test it out. And that could manifest in different ways. Like it could be your something like a template gallery or a sandbox that is open for me to play in, or it could be just signing up and getting to the value quickly. Like signing up and testing it out. Make it possible for me to test out with no commitment, right? Ideally, do both. Like ideally, have both the some sort of a free plan, some sort of an option for me to use this, right, and see that it works for me. Maybe go for those, either the templates or the full-fledged sandbox, depending on your case, right, on your situation. There are nuances to when to use which, but the core principle is make it easy for people to test it, because they see your claim, they understand what you do, they understand your angle, they took a look at the docs maybe, and they understand that the docs claim similar things. They look reasonable. They saw those tweets from other devs talking about getting this value. They want to test it out. They want to see that it is true. They want to experience that value. So make it possible for them. Don't block it. Don't do request a demo. Because that will cost. Like, I'm not saying you at all times it makes sense to get people to the free product. There are situations where it doesn't, right? But a lot of times, it does. And in all cases, you want some sort of value that they can experience in that first session when they're exploring. Sandbox is sometimes a good example when you have a product that is like very hard to test out in that single session, right? So you have this interactive environment on a sandbox. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, it's amazing. It's a very valuable insight, very opinionated one also, Kuba, because you are saying that essentially create the entire developer experience, or the website experience around the developer and all the things that follow from there. As a CMO, have you felt conflicted that, because in many cases, developer is not the buyer and that entire experience is being created around a developer while the buyer is taking a secondary role on your prime estate, which is your website? Have you felt conflicted that should I also, and how much to target the buyer also, or not at all, and I'll just focus on this persona as a developer and build that asset around?
Yeah, no, for sure. I love this question, and I think it's super valid, because most of the time, yes, the buyer is not the end user, right? Especially when you go enterprise, right? So, and by the way, I'm we talk about this together with Ben Williams in a Ultimate Guide to Websites, or to DevTool websites, that we wrote together, both the principles, and this actually came up there as well. I highly recommend it. I'll share the link with you. But what's important is, yes, you need to address both, right? Like, both are important. Both the user persona and the buyer persona are important. Now the question is, how do you address both, right? And what I claim, my claim is that that the CTO is not evaluating your tool themselves. That's basically everything sits on this claim, right? That if the CTO is actually evaluating your tool, then either you're building a tool for the CTOs, so they are the end user, or that CTO is very hands-on. Maybe it's early startup, or something like that, where that person is actually very hands-on, i.e., they're also the user. Or maybe the manager of the user, but they touch the tool, right? But typically, when you think about this situation, you have this, on one end, you have this like detached buyer persona who doesn't, who only cares about high-level value, right? And then you have the developer that cares about the actual functional value and the things that they're going to get from it. And so my claim is that they don't do it themselves, the CTO. They don't do it themselves. So at the end of the day, this is going to be the dev looking at that website, right? Because even if it's a CTO that goes to the website because heard at the conference, from a friend or something like that, and they go to the website, check out, oh yeah, so that was the website. What's the next step? Are they going to spend, test it out themselves? Like, most of the time, no. Like, they will, talk to their, maybe they will talk to the director, or talk to a solution architect that they have, or, just the architect that they have. Right, like, or maybe some senior dev to evaluate it, to take a look, right, or share it with the team and see if people, see this as valuable, right? Like, it's not, like, they're not going to be evaluating this, and you need to lend the value for the developer, because even in that most CTO heavy, I guess, scenario where the CTO actually brings the tool, right? Because they opened your email, cold email, and they decided to take a look. Like, the next step is the dev, looking at the website, right? So my claim is that oftentimes it goes from the other direction, where it starts with the dev. The dev, takes it, like, they know they have a problem, they take a look, right? They test it out, they see that it's valuable, they start using it on a team. Maybe they use it on a free plan, or maybe they upgrade to the team plan that typically sits under the limits of the credit card, right? So that the team manager, needs to buy into this. How does the team manager gets bought into this? Well, the dev tells them, that this is valuable for our team. Like, this is what I see. Like, you can take a look at, like, they're doing the selling, right? And then when it's not even their boss, the developer's boss, but they're the boss of their boss, in this case, the CTO, or when it gets adopted, like, who does the selling? It's either the manager or the dev, like, and it's not going to go where the devs, they started using this, they tested it out, or they evaluated it, and then it goes to the CTO, and what? CTO goes to the website and he says, oh, no, this is not valuable because it doesn't talk about, no, it's not going to happen. But what you need is you need ammunition for, and different ways of convincing the buyer persona, or you need those things. Well, my claim is it's just not in the most sort of visible places on the website. I mean, so let me maybe double click on this, right? So what I see is that CTO is going to need a lot of or other buyer personas. They're going to need, those ROIs. They're going to need trust building. They want to understand that they're not making a stupid mistake that is going to cost them their career, right? Because they are migrating away from a non-database to a completely new database that is going to be risky, right? So they need to manage risks, right? So when you manage risk, what do? You lean on your peer group. You lean on social proof. You lean on, reviews of, the sites that actually give you trust, the G2s and Forresters and Gartners of the world. You lean on, so if if Uber is using this at scale, then that's great. I want to see that I want to see that trust. I want to see those case studies. I want to see that the guy from Uber, the CTO of Uber says that this basically, I don't know, half their time of, the CI/CD job creation or something so basically they managed to, to build those apps faster, or their iteration cycle decreased, or the retention of devs increased because they're so much more happy now. Those things, yes, you want to hear that from those big teams, but it's about trust. It's not about the value that individual developer gets as much. So maybe that example when I said about those CI/CD is actually a lower level value. Higher level value is that they get faster, right? So you want to speak to that trust. So when you go to their pages that on the website that actually address it, it's from my perspective, it's mostly about us and enterprise that address it, where you want to see that the company is not going to go belly up. So you want to see that it's, it's been there for a while, or has great funding. There are some, there are this many people working there, right? So they will be able to support that organization if there's it's a global org of 400 people or whatever. And there, I want to see certifications. Is it SOC 2? Is it GDPR? Do I have HIPAAs? Do I have that stuff? Is it that, right? Do you, so you want to see those signals, right? Do you deploy on my infra, or will I have to switch from AWS to Google, to use it? I want to see that, that you have it, that it works on private clouds and everything is nice and, it's going to be nice and smooth when I actually, deploy this, right? Or when we try to roll it out. But it's mostly trust if you think about it, right? And then the ROIs, they help, but they build that trust. So you want to have them. You want to have those case studies. You want to have those white papers. You want to, give your sales team materials that they can share, semi-ready, slide decks that they can, reuse, or, the one-pagers and things like that. You want to do that, but you don't want to do that on the homepage, and, not at the, the 70 or 80% of that homepage. Because I do like having the enterprise section very low on the page. I do like it. But it's, again, all about trust, all about those big enterprise logos, big usage numbers, big, it's basically, do enterprises trust you? Do people trust you? Can I trust you? This is what you want to convey. Because the developer should do the selling for you, they should be doing the selling. You're not going to sell your slightly better way of doing notifications to the CTO. I think it's impossible. It has to be your dev who explains that this actually saves us so much time because it's better, because in our way of doing this actually translates to us working quicker, blah 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 blah. Right? So yeah, that's what I believe.
Makes sense, and thanks. That is super insightful. Kuba, and this is perhaps the last question that I ask my podcast most of the times, but what are some of the best books, podcasts, blogs, and other resources that you recommend to developer marketers out there?
Yeah. So I'd start with our, or maybe if you have to plug it, then let's plug it right away. I definitely believe that my blog is really good, and the newsletter. So go to markeper.com and find it. But we have a great community together with other DevTool leaders. We created Marketing to Dev. I think it's fantastic. People are, I wish I was more active, but people are really asking great questions, answering great answers. I love that community. I think it's one of the best things that it's out there for DevTool GTM folks right now. When it comes to podcasts, I love Scaling DevTools. I love open source. Open source startup. I do look through like SaaSters and stuff like that for good episodes that are with DevTool folks, or there are some other other places, but yeah, like those would be the ones. Then other resources, I think HeavyBit is very under. I don't know, like people don't know it about it for some reason. I find it extremely valuable. The content is fantastic, especially for open source folks. So I love that. I recently saw that some books. All right, so on the books front, I'd say that there are some great books for every marketer, but developer marketing specifically. I think reading the book from Adam Duvander, Developer Marketing Does Not Exist, even though I do believe it exists, is a great book. And more recently, I bought the copy. I haven't read it yet, but knowing the content that Adam Franco has put out, I imagine that book must be amazing. I bought it. I haven't read it yet. I'm hoping actually to sit on it this weekend. But Adam Franco's new book, I think it's Developer Startup or something like that. But it's gotta be fantastic. But if you do one thing, and you want to be plugged in and see all of those other resources, then I'd suggest you go to that community of ours, Marketing to Dev, and people are sharing great stuff in there, and including all of those places.
Yeah, no, Kuba, I agree. I mean, some of these are amazing resources. Like as a DevTool sales revenue person a couple of years back, I mean, these were some of the ones that I was visiting, and of course that I also always felt that there are very few resources out there, right? And now sort of that has changed a lot in the last 1 or 2 years. So I mean, all of these are really amazing resources. Definitely recommend HeavyBit. Definitely recommend Adam Frankel's thesis on all of this in the book. Yeah.
Yeah, like just to add, like when you were talking about, like I definitely have to mention yours as well. And there's one more, like yours, your Substack. Some of those developer funnel articles, I keep sharing them. I love this. Like it's such a good, explanation of what I talked about with this user versus buyer and things like that. Like in so much more detail. I think that's great. One more resource that is, I mean, sometimes is about that. Sometimes it's more about the general POG, but content from hyper-growth partners is a bomb as well. Like they have also this like marketing funnel article that I keep sending that I absolutely love. So now there is a lot of content. Like funny enough, like 2 years ago when I started this blog, like one of the reasons for me to start it was like there was nothing there. I figured I'd start it to start a discussion, and hopefully find other people who could disagree and tell me, like that maybe that there was 100 better ways of doing it. I found that too. But it's such a better place right now with so much more resources that are very valuable and come from practitioners. That just use that.
Well, absolutely, Kuba, and thanks for sort of all your role of you and others and sort of making this much more easier place to navigate for anybody who's trying to learn here. Yeah, and that's it from our side. Thanks so much for being here on the podcast. It was amazing speaking and discussing so many things. Really, really valuable. Yeah, thank you and have a nice day.
Thank you so much, Ajay. It was fun talking to you.